Today I wanted to bring you a brief update on my armor stat planner and some math I've been doing. Everyone loves math, but some of this stuff does affect how we're learning about the new skills. Not a whole lot to this, but the main highlights are the energy gain benefit is smaller than originally thought. That is what is read in game as plus 190%, but it looks like it actually tops out at about 142%. I'll explain the math on that. A lot of stuff so far has been using cooldown reduction, but that's kind of a complicated factor, so I've switched everything over to cooldown factors, which are a lot better, and I've quantified all those within the armor stat planner. Next, the melee and grenade abilities share the same cooldown reduction, but class has a different cooldown reduction, like it always has, but it's a different formula and it has different ranges on it. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, based on what I'm seeing in looking at a lot of previews and looking at cooldowns of things, some grenades and one barricade and one rift seem to be changing cooldown. We'll hopefully get an abilities article one of these days soon, but just something to think about. I would not put too much stock into it because things do change and there is a chance I may be slightly wrong, but it does look like some changes are coming. If you don't want to see all the math and how it works, continue using my armor stat planner, which will be linked in the description. If you want to see exactly how the factors in it work, there will be a timestamp for that, and everything else, feel free to use that. I like to make my videos convenient, as you might know if you've seen any of my videos before. With all that said, that sounds good. Let's get into it. I'm Engineer. Let's first talk about the energy gained benefit on stats. This is present on melee, grenade, class, and super, and it changes how much regen and flat chunks of ability energy you get for melee, grenade, and class, and how much active super regen you get for super. Now, according to Bungie, 70 stat is equivalent to current values, aka 100%. You gain less energy below 70, and you gain more energy than normal above 70, and is expressed as plus X%. The highest value of it is plus 190%. The lowest value I have is plus 3%. That is at 11 stat points. I was able to develop a very good equation for this. You can see every single one of those dots is a point measured taken from gameplay. And we originally thought that you would get up to plus 190% extra energy. We thought originally that you would get 190% energy at 100 and you get 0 energy at 0. But some other people and I were kind of nervous about that plus. What does that plus mean? Well, we started doing some thinking and we were thinking that the plus is over a base. And so we found a value exactly at 70, fortunately, thanks to one of the videos, and that was 103.7%. So when we divide by 1 plus 1.037, we get 49.1%, which would be the value at 0. So using that as our baseline, we create a new curve, and that will now top out at 142.5%. So what this would imply is that all flat gains and all regions at 0 stat will do just under half of what they do now. And then at 100 stat, you would get 42% more energy. So all that to say, some of us have been very excited about getting near double regen. I don't think that's happening. And honestly, that makes sense. They're not gonna give us double regen for getting 30 more points. That's a crazy amount. We've got a flatter kind of curve here. It's much more reasonable. I think this is accurate. I've also done some testing looking at gameplay with Gambler's Dodge and Threaded Spike thanks to Mactix, and I've mathed this out and it looks pretty close. I do not think this is exactly perfect, but this is by far our best guess until Bungie actually tells us how the system works with numbers for once. So keep all this in mind. It won't change dramatically what anyone is planning, but I think it will give us more grounded numbers. Another thing to change from when all this information started originally coming out, Scaro9, who is a great content creator in the community, was one of the first to actually think about measuring the cooldown. And so what he did is he measured cooldown reduction at 50% and 100%. And that is a perfectly reasonable way to go about it, but it misses the point that there is a defined base for cooldown in Destiny 2, and that is at 30 stat. So what is a better approach is to look at a additional base cooldown factor. And the reason this is useful is this is how a lot of our abilities work in the game. As an example, this is the current information on discipline in game today. This will not be true in Edge of Fate because discipline's going away, but at base, which is 3, you have a factor of 1. As you move up to 10, you get a factor of 2. And what you would do is you would divide your cooldown by 2. And that 2 means that you have twice the regen that you used to. So that's why you're dividing your base cooldown by 2 to get the resulting cooldown. As an example, say you have a 152 second base cooldown grenade, like a vortex grenade now, at 100 discipline, you divide that by 2, you get 76 seconds. Now at 0, that factor becomes a value that's less than 1, so you divide by 0.7, which would make your cooldown longer. And that's how everything's pretty much worked. As I mentioned, extra regens do work with this. So how do you incorporate those extra regens? You add them to the stat regen factor, and then you divide. So as an example, Solar Grenade, which is currently 152 seconds, with tier 10 Discipline and Ember of Benevolence active, so that's a factor of 2 for the Discipline, and then Ember of Benevolence is plus 400%. Now mind that plus, that is additive onto the base cooldown. So you take 152 divided by 2 plus 4, and you get a cooldown of 25.3 seconds instead of 76 seconds. Very cool. Another example is Gambler's Dodge on Prismatic with tier 10 Mobility, Facet of Hope, and Winter's Shroud, just to show you how multiple factors will work. Now, as I briefly mentioned in the outline, class abilities don't go quite as high. So at 100, it is 1.7. Facet of Hope will add plus 40% for one buff and plus 60% for two buffs, which a lot of people don't know, but it is very helpful. And then lastly, Winter's Shroud will give plus 300% class regen whenever you slow enemies. So you take that base cooldown of 38 seconds and you divide it by 1.7 plus 0.6 plus 3. And that will get you a cooldown of 7.17 seconds, which is quite fast if you've ever tried that out. It's a really fun way to build. Those new stat boosts and the energy gain factor on a stat will boost your percent regen boost as well. So for example, take a Solar Grenade once again, 152 seconds with tier 10 grenade stat. That now goes up to 3.0 as a cooldown factor instead of 2, and you take Ember of Benevolence. So Ember of Benevolence is 400%, but you multiply by that 142.5%, now it's 570%. So you now divide 152 divided by 3 plus 5.7, and you've got the cooldown on that grenade down to just under 17.5 seconds. Now Gambler's Dodge, for instance, same setup, but we're using a 100 class stat instead. That looks to not be changing at all at 100. It's going to top out at 1.7 still, but you multiply your buffs. So you take 60%, multiply by 142.5% or 1.425 in decimals, and you get 85.5%. Winter's Shroud goes up to 427.5%, which is very cool. And so then you now divide 38 by 1.7 plus 0.855 plus 4.275, and you get your Gambler's Dodge cooldown down to 5.56 seconds, which is super cool. That's going to be really useful in Edge of Fate with the class stat, because if you go over 100, you'll get Overshield every time you use your class ability, but it only lasts for 5 seconds. So if you can get this cooldown to just around 5 seconds, you will have near infinite Overshield. So very cool. That's a lot of math. You don't necessarily have to do this. That's totally fine. If I ever get more free time, I might make a calculator to help you figure these things out, but it will involve a lot of data entry. Speaking of all these cooldowns, let's talk about what they seem to look like now. So first, Melee and Grenade are going to share a cooldown relationship, and this is exactly how they work now. Melee and Grenade have the exact same values per stat as each other. I'm including the Strength snip from Destiny Data Compendium, which if you go back earlier in the video, you'll notice is exactly identical to the Discipline. These work very similarly. Right now, at 0 stat, you get 0.7 regen, at 30 stat, you get 1, and 100 stat, you get 2. So another great person in the community, Spider Reviver, who sometimes does some spreadsheet research and things like that, helped me compile snips of a bunch of different videos so that we could get data points. Originally, I combined all these with the class, but the data didn't make sense, so I split out grenades and melees. And unfortunately, a lot of the melees were bugged and they were just showing a 3-second cooldown. But I finally did that and then estimated what the ability being used was and put in the base cooldown so we could calculate factors and determine what the regen scalar is. All I have to say, I did a lot of math, and it looks like this is the new curve. It tops out at 3 instead of 2. It still goes down to 0.7 just like it always did, but I have very little data below 30. No one had a grenade or melee stat below 30 without a bugged melee cooldown value. Now, the other interesting thing I noted here is I had 4 values that did not work or get anywhere near a reasonable value unless I increased their cooldowns. They were all looked to be long cooldown abilities, but I had to take them up to 185 seconds to make the values reasonable. So that implies to me that there is a new longer cooldown from the current longest grenade cooldown of 152 seconds. So some grenades are getting nerfed in their cooldown when Edge of Fate launches if the preview build holds true. Now, this very much might change. We won't know until we get an ability previews article, and really we won't know until the game launches. But Something to keep in mind out there if you're very excited about spamming Vortex or Solar Grenades, maybe not. We'll see. Just for reference, these happened on Prismatic Warlock, Solar Warlock, and Solar Titan, so it is likely grenades that are on those couple things. Just to summarize these again, right now, 0 stat appears to be at 0.7 cooldown factor, 30 stat appears to be really close to 1, still getting a little bit off from that. 70 stat is very close to a cooldown factor of 2, just like the old 100 stat, which is what Bungie stated would be the goal, and then 100 stat is 3, up from 2.0. Once again, all these values are built into the Armor Stat Planner, so they'll be generated for you. And as I get more information, I will try to generate these curves. As you can see here, a lot of different content creators' previews helped with this, so thank you to all of them for getting those screenshots and putting up that gameplay because it was really helpful. Moving over to class. Class abilities look to share a common formula in Edge of Fate, but they do not now. Currently for mobility at 0 stat you get 0.85 regen, and then at 30 stat you get 1, and at 100 stat you get 1.7. Whereas for resilience and recovery at 0 stat you get 0.7 regen, and then at 30 stat you get 1, and 100 stat you get 1.7. So right now, hunters actually get a little bit of a benefit at low mobility for their dodge cooldown, which is kind of cool, but it's not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. But once again, I don't think it's a huge deal. So once again, I plotted all of these and managed to find a very straight relationship. If I looked at the cooldown factor, the regen factor ends up being curved, but this was a lot easier to create an equation for, so that's what I used. Once again, you don't have to worry about this, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. So it looks like at 0 stat, it appears to be the 0.85 factor, just like Hunter's dodge has now. So this is a slight improvement for Warlocks and Titans. 30 stat is still close to a 1.0 factor. 70 stat is about 1.4, just less than the old 100 stat. And then 100 stat is up to 2. So it's improved a bit at 100, but 70 is a little bit worse than 100 is now. You can see one cell on this table down here is highlighted green. That is Threaded Spectre, which if you didn't know gives a 0.6 factor on your cooldown. So that will make your cooldown a little bit slower, but that fixed that value perfectly. Now, one thing I did notice in this is that it looks like there is a Titan class ability that is going from 38 seconds to 48 seconds, and that can only really be Rally Barricade. This does not surprise me. Rally Barricade has got a huge glow up in the last episode, and it's very good. So fortunately, it looks like they're upping the cooldown on it. And then in addition, it looks like they're taking one of the Warlock class abilities up to 107 seconds from the current 82 seconds. So I don't know which rift this is. Maybe it's Empowering Rift, maybe it's Healing Rift. It does not look like it's both though. So place your bets and we'll see what happens. If it's Empowering Rift, honestly, that's just super unfortunate because I feel like no one uses that right now anyways. All that to say, I feel very good about this information. We have a good spread of values and it's pretty consistent. But as always, things are probably going to change as we get closer to launch. As I mentioned several times now, the planner is up to date. This is what the build stat benefits will look like in it if you get a fresh factor. You will see under melee, grenade, and class a cooldown factor. So if you have a base cooldown, just divide it by that value to figure out what the new cooldown is. Remember, all your flat gains and regen boosts will be boosted by the energy gained factor for the relevant ability. So say Demolitionist will get boosted by the energy gained of grenades. So just multiply by that. For damage increases, multiply damage by 1 plus the damage increase. Say for the grenade, you're looking at 35.8%, multiply by 1.358, and that will give you the new grenade damage. If you have multiple factors, add 1 to all of them, multiply them, and that will give you your total resulting damage boost. One thing to mention as we get more damage buff sources, mind the stacking of damage increases. This mostly applies to weapons, but a lot of our buffs go into categories. Like there are multiple different weaken effects, but you only take advantage of the largest weakening effect. We also have multiple empowering benefits, such as Empowering Rifts or Radiant or Well of Radiance, and you will only take the strongest of those factors, not stack them. On top of that, we also have surges. You will only take the best surge you can get to. So if your weapon provides 4 surges, but your armor has 3, you just get the 4. So keep that in mind. Not everything stacks. There is an excellent guide, which I will link in the description, by a great community member named Court, and it is the best guide to stacking values. If you've looked around in the Armor Stat Planner, there's this gigantic table of all the benefits of the armor stats every 10 stat points, and this is fully up to date. It has all my formulas built into it. Use this as a reference if you need to. I find it very cool, but I just wanted to put it up here, and you can look at all these values. You can pause and look upon its majesty. That's pretty much all I've got for today. Just concluding, energy gain benefits smaller than originally thought, down from 190% to 142.5%. Cooldown reduction is annoying to measure, so we were using cooldown factors. Melee and grenade share an equation for cooldown reduction. Some grenades might be in their cooldown increased, but don't take it too seriously till we know more. Class has a different cooldown reduction than melee and grenade, like it always has, and one barricade and one rift might be changing cooldown. That's all I've got for today. I hope this has helped you. I hope the tools are helping you. Let me know what you think in the comments, or if you have any thoughts about what this might change. I don't think it's gonna have too much impact, but hopefully this is helpful. With all that said, I wanna say thank you to everybody, especially my YouTube channel supporters, Davey0011, Infernal Park 111, and Aradrio. I really appreciate their support on the channel. As people do support me, it lets me do this a little bit more and create more cool tools and builds for you. Sorry I'm not making a lot of builds yet. I am dying for the ability and exotic tuning articles so that I can start churning out builds and build ideas, and I have a lot of fun with Edge of Fate, but we are currently waiting. I will hope to bring you a couple more guides while we do wait. And with that, I will let you go. Thanks. Have a good one.